I'm Brandon.
And I'm Brandon.
And welcome back to Apollo City Comics. I guess I can't even say the unscripted comic book commentary show. It's been so long since we've done a commentary, but welcome to our summer of interviews. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very exciting and extraordinary guest that has so many credits. I can't even name them all, but we're going to focus on his main thing right now. The writer of Condry, Patrick Hickey Jr. Hello, sir.
What's up, guys? Happy to be here.
We're
Happy to have you.
So excited to have you. We reached out over Instagram. I love Instagram because it's one of those things. I've networked with so many people and kind of spread the word, and we're always trying to share creators' work and trying to really dive into people kind of up and coming and people who are making new stuff and people who are just putting out like indie stuff and titles and trying to get the word out there to help support that little genre. And dude, I'm so glad that we got to connect. You set us up with the interview with Charlie a few weeks ago, and here we are finally to discuss you in the flesh, or at least virtually in the flesh.
Yeah.
But tell us about your comic. For lesser known comics, Condry. What's it about? You're the writer. How did this come about? What's the idea behind it? And how long have you been working on this?
So essentially, the elevator pitch is it's about a homeless man that is on the quest to find the people responsible for killing his father. If you're really into comics and you know your comics, I would say it's kind of like a combination of like Spawn, Sam and Twitch, probably some like 70s era Daredevil. So there's some there's some gritty noir. There's a lot of action, but at the same time too, as we move on, there's like a level of humanity. There's a lot of moving parts. It's kind of like if Spawn had a baby with Highlander, the movie. So that's kind of like what's going on. Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, it's so funny. I love that description. Right when I opened up the PDF, when it popped up, my physical issue is coming in the mail soon, so I'm super hyped for that. But dude, the artwork right off the bat, like, and the kind of that dirty kind of New York kind of style grit feel.
Yeah.
I've been on a Spawn kick this entire year. I'm trying to catch up to everything, and that was the first thing that popped in my mind. I was like, this artwork just screams like Spawn and the set.
Yeah, like 90s Spawn just like completely changed my life. Todd McFarlane, David Mack, Frank Miller, a lot of those guys had a huge effect on me as writers and artists. And ironically, Condry has kind of been in the works for about 20 years.
Nice.
I wrote it originally when I was 18. I'm 37 now. Went through like 3 artists before I met Kieran. I remember the first artist that drew Condry. He looked like Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII. And I was like,
what a crazy contrast.
Yeah, I was like, what?
It's not what I wanted it to look like at all. And then another guy was just like kind of too slow. And then another guy was great. And he is an amazing artist. Dominic Vargas. He's not even in comics. He does a lot of stuff on Instagram, but we couldn't get on the same page. And because my goal has always been that eventually I would like this to be a monthly comic.
Nice.
Like the pros, and Kieran, I saw Kieran's work. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and his speed and his precision were exactly where they needed to be.
Nice.
And then COVID happened. So we started pitching people, but we were getting responses from like Dark Horse and Image that were like, this is good, but we're not really accepting anything from, unproven, creators right now because of COVID. And then what happened was Mark Burnell, who's the owner of Lesser Known Comics, reached out to me, and I've been a journalist covering entertainment for over 15 years, especially like video games, comic books, professional wrestling. So like comic books, I've interviewed like Axel Alonso, Joe Quesada, David Mack, Jeff Loeb, Steve Niles. Like I've interviewed some really Paul Hogan, Peter Hogan, some really like heavy hitters, John Arcudi. So Mark asked me to interview him to talk about his company. This was like in February of this year. So to the interview, I promoted on social media. We get it nice chunk of traffic. And then, Mark was like, oh, if there's ever anything that I could do, blah, blah, blah. I was like, actually, take a look at this. So we had like a 6-page preview story, which eventually became Condry Zero. So I showed it to him, and probably like an hour later, he was like, yeah, we need to talk. And then a couple of weeks later, Kieran and I are brought on, and we're a part of the company. And Kieran's working on like another comic with Mark now, in addition to Condry. And I'm a social media outreach. I'm like one of the social media outreach people and the writer of Condry for lesser known. So it's been a pretty crazy 4 months. So
dude, that is what a journey too. I mean, that's mind blowing. I kind of have that same background of a journalistic standpoint of interviewing people and whatnot, and it's always like a very surreal thing being able to talk to these creators, especially in the pros, because it kind of, as a creator, it kind of changes your outlook on stuff. You feel like you're just taking notes the entire time, and it's excitement.
Absolutely.
Plus like knowledge, and you're just like, please just give me everything you can. And
there's just been so many times where I'm just like interviewing somebody and they're talking about their characters, and I'm just like, oh, this is how I feel about my comic. And so it's like, I remember one time I was producing an interview that another one of my writers was doing. I was videotaping it and stuff like that. I had arranged the whole thing, and she's interviewing Christopher Claremont.
Oh, nice.
It's like one of the greatest of all time. And we're in his house.
Oh, wow.
And covered in comic books, stacked up. He's got like 8 cats, but like,
oh my God,
bookcases, like guys, bookcases filled with comics, like inks all over the floor of like ink pages.
Oh my
gosh. It was just like, so he's talking about like Wolverine and Jean Grey and stuff, and he's just like, oh, when Logan, and it's like he's talking as if these characters are real, like real people. And I'm just like, that's a man that has built a universe. I'm like, that's awesome. So that always like kind of like stuck with me. So it's like, I try and like when I write, I try and pretend that or as much as I possibly can, act like my characters like are real, Another great story I got was from Mark Millar, Marvel Civil War. Like, yes. I mean, he's I'm on the phone with him in his house. Like I called his house and we're talking and stuff like that. We're doing the interview, and it's for this comic that he did called Chrononauts. Very good graphic novel.
One of my favorites. Yeah, with Sean Murphy. Did the artwork for that.
So good.
Yeah,
this was like good. When it first came out, like the first one, and he's like, his little, his accent, and he's like, Stan Lee told him one time, like, Mark, you're amazing, but no one's going to remember you until you do your own comics.
Oh, wow.
Meaning you create your own characters. So he's like, like Marvel could never thank you enough for like the things that you've done with these characters, but you will not be like what you need to be until you create your own comics, like with your own characters. And that's one of the reasons why like Chrononauts exists. So like, to me, it's always like, I mean, I think personally, I could write an amazing Spider-Man arc. I think I could write, and no pun intended, an amazing Spider-Man arc. I would love one day to get a hold of Daken, Wolverine's son. I think I could write a kick-ass Daken run. But Condry is my baby. And Condry is, I think, the comic that, like, at the end of the day, regardless of where I go and whatever I do, I think that's going to be like that, or whatever else I ultimately eventually create myself, that those are going to be like the things that's my legacy, So,
yeah.
So I've taken something from those interviews that I've done over the years. Absolutely.
Oh man. Yeah, definitely.
There's something about the creator owned like area of comics that I feel like a lot of casual readers, and nothing against them, a lot of casual readers don't really get, is that when you create your own independent book, it is your book. And I once had someone tell me at the comic shop I go to, talk about how, like, there's always going to be a run of Spider-Man. There's always going to be Batman. There's always going to be the superhero genre. There's always going to be those books coming off the fresh off the press kind of thing, or distributed however. But independent books, they only last so long. And they are a story that's meant to be told a certain way that isn't forced under contract to be published just because it's like a big $1 billion character. It's something that a creator went out their way to continue to publish and almost like self-fund in a way. And, you know, they put everything they have into it. And
Yeah.
that's exactly, you know, what it is, you know, it's,
Mm-hmm.
and I can
It's
totally
like I look at
understand
some
that.
of my favorite comics. Like, of course, I love Spider-Man and I love Wolverine and stuff.
Yeah.
But like I think of comics like The Goon. I think of like Hellboy, which became
Mhm.
like, you know, a massive success, but it
Mhm.
started off as, you know, like a really like indie comic. Back to Brooklyn.
Oh yeah.
I think of like a lot of stuff like that people are kind of like, wait, what?
Mhm.
You know, it's like every time I'm on a comic book podcast, I start naming comics and they're just like, what? Like Bastard Samurai, like Michael Oeming, you know,
Ooh.
stuff that like that you may not, that the average reader may not, you know.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And I'm just
yeah.
like, this stuff is amazing. You know, it's like everyone is talking about Invincible now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I did a review of Invincible like 12 years ago. And I told you 12 years ago how good it was. You know, so it's just like,
Yeah.
it's so funny to me. You know,
Yeah.
I used to tell people all the time, like, Walking Dead is sexy. Walking Dead is great, but you should read this one too. And, no. And now it's like,
Well,
so it's funny.
It's
What-
crazy how the industry's changed over the last, I mean, I
Mhm.
would say like decade pretty much, you know, because even when I was like in high school and the first Iron Man and all that was, I don't remember when the first Iron Man came out. I think I was in high school.
it was 2008. I remember because
Okay.
I was in high school still.
Okay, then I was in high school.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even cool to be like superheroes then, you know, like we
Yeah,
still get
and-
picked
Oh,
on
yeah.
for stuff like that. And probably as soon as like we graduated, 2 years kind of went by, and all of a sudden, oh, everyone's into it, and you're
Yeah.
like the guru behind stuff, you know. And it's kind of a weird switch how
It's-
the industry's just. It's now so mainstream, you know.
Well,
Absolutely.
it's also the influence of like Hollywood, right?
Mhm.
Like once
Mhm.
something becomes a TV show or a movie, that's when you've like tapped into like the biggest audience as possible. You know, that's
Yep.
once you're in theaters or on a streaming service, that's it. There's no other
Yep.
bigger form of media, you know, and it's like Sweet Tooth. I told Brandon to read Sweet Tooth not too long ago, and I was like, this is an amazing book. I was like,
Yeah.
you know, this is Jeff Lemire at his peak, and then now the trailer comes out for the TV show, and everyone's going crazy to watch it.
Yeah, we
you know?
interviewed him on Review Fix like
Ugh,
10
God.
years ago, you know, and it's just like, it's the same thing with Resident Alien.
Oh yeah.
I loved Resident Alien when it first came out, and like I've
Mhm.
spoken to, you know, Peter like through email for 10 years. And I used to tell him all the time, I'm like, I'm an English professor, English and journalism professor. I've taught college for 15 years. And I use Resident Alien all the time in my class because it's just so beautifully written. And so many people now are watching the sci-fi show and they're like, oh, it's really cool. And I'm like, it is, but it's very different from the
Mhm.
comic. The comic is so much better. The comic has more of a soul,
Mhm.
you know, and like when Conjury Zero first came out, I messaged Peter on Facebook and I'm like, Peter, I need you to read this. I need you to tell me what you think. And he did. And it was just like, that was a huge help to us, you know, like
Nice.
for him to give us like the stamp of approval.
Mhm.
So, but it's just like to go back to what you're saying. Yeah, man, like so many people now are like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. This is cool. And it's like, it's been cool for a really long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The problem is you're not that cool.
there you go.
You know,
Honestly, like,
There's always
You know,
that
but
thing.
that's not your guys' problem. You guys have been cool, but a lot of people, they're not that cool.
There's that
you
thing
know?
with the comic book community where it's like, oh, you know, we read this before, you know, it was a TV show, and you try
Mhm.
really hard not to be that person that's like, well, the book actually.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's
You know,
always-
Yeah.
when you're part of this niche community of reading independent comics, especially not even just like superhero comics, like there's a certain threshold of like knowledge. You don't need a whole lot of knowledge to love something, of course.
Oh yeah,
But-
sure.
Yeah, you could love anything however you want, but it's like with super.
Oh dang, you froze up.
It's like,
Oh hey Spock. Good timing. Maybe he'll pop back in right now.
yeah. I totally get what he's saying though, because it's like I remember watching the first season of The Walking Dead And-
Yes.
and going, who the fuck is T-Dog?
Yeah, dude, and
Like,
it's one of those
why?
things. Like The Walking Dead.
Oh, he's
too.
back. There you
Oh,
go.
I'm
we go.
back. Sorry, I
There
don't
you
know
go.
what happened there.
You're good.
What-
That's okay.
Where did it cut off at?
We just wandered into The Walking Dead.
No, when you were saying
Yeah.
when you were saying that, like, you know, that as comic book readers, you're kind of like, yeah, but in the book, it's you know, when compared to the TV show. So that's why I brought up. I'm just like, I remember watching the first season of The Walking Dead and getting so excited, and then like the first episode, it's like T-Dog. I'm like, who the fuck is T-Dog? Why is he on this show? You know, and like, why is Shane still alive? What the hell is going on here? You know, but then it's just like you kind of separate the two, and you're like, okay,
yeah, you got to treat them as separate entities.
And then Kirkman's always tried to do try to make it worthwhile for a viewer and for a reader. So like if you're a fan of the book, the show of whatever movie is going to always be a little bit different to keep it fresh for you and everything.
Yeah.
Although I don't know, I wasn't a big fan of the Walking Dead TV show. I stopped after I think after
like the second or third season. For me, it just kind of like
very early on.
I remember one of the girl, like the little girl that's always with Rick's son.
Oh yeah.
They're supposed to like kind of like grow up through the zombie apocalypse, like together. That was like, and then it was like she was missing, and then she was in the barn at like the end of the second or third season, and she's a zombie. And I'm like, you just fucked up like one of the major story arcs of the comic, because you're supposed to see a young boy and a young girl growing up through the zombie apocalypse compared to the adults. Because, you know, Carl goes through so much, and so does she. This little girl goes through so much, and they took that away. And I'm just like, that was such a big mistake. But I mean,
well,
you know,
in that situation, you're like, well, the comic still exists, so there's that.
And now it's deluxe. Have you guys seen it in deluxe?
Oh, dude, yeah, gorgeous, so gorgeous.
But okay. Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
It's funny how, like, you know, it's not even a point out. I mean, it's hard to say not to use the word lazy, but like, you know, people are watching the movies and going to the theater and sitting down and watching TV, but instead of like sitting down with the comic and paying that extra amount for something that's going to be there, and physically you can read it, admire the artwork, all the craft that goes behind it. And I mean, you know, I understand what goes behind a movie and the creation of it, but honestly, like the time and work that goes into a comic is almost like no other art form. It's you know,
it's 3D reading. I love it.
Yeah, it's like, how are you not going to be? I don't know. It's like lazier just to get into it because the movie or TV show is cool, but like for you to sit down and like look at these pictures and read the words and put it all together and have it move in your head, it's
it's a whole different experience.
Yeah,
and you know, it's just, I don't know, something about it. The other thing is when you're reading a comic, it just feels, typically you read alone. I don't know if you share a book and read with someone next to you, but it's a very personal experience. You know, it's
absolutely.
It's this experience that you can't really describe. You're just there with the book, and to even write one, as you would know, like it's a whole different experience as well. That's very personal. You know? But I was gonna ask real quick, not to stray off too far. We were talking about like movies and TV shows, and typically in the comic book world, you know, besides the two big publishers, whether it be DC and Marvel and all that, when you're independent and you land that deal where you get a movie, you get a TV show, you know, I feel like at that point you're like, okay, you've made the big bucks. The thing is, there are creators that don't want to do that. Take, for instance, Brian K. Vaughan. He doesn't want to turn Saga into a TV show or movie. He made it very clear at the beginning that this is something that will always be a comic. And at least from what I remember reading, that's his goal. With Fiona Staples as well, I'm pretty sure they both agreed to that. And so what I wanted to ask is with Conjury, you know, I read issue 0 and 1. Say you do get your monthly book, you do get the, you know, issue 50 landmark, you know, you get to that point, and then Netflix hits you up, hey, we want to turn this into a TV show. Since Conjury is your baby, that is your, you know, your creation, could you see yourself doing that in general? Maybe.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
This is the thing. Yeah, there's like no doubt. Well, because listen, there's like there's a bunch of factors that like I'll absolutely positively get into. The first thing is that so we talked about The Walking Dead a little bit. I know for a fact that their readership went up because of the show. More people read the comic because of the show. And the thing is, it's like the comic is the thing that like I can control. So once I give somebody else control over like the TV show and stuff like that, I kind of have to just eat it and be like, I gave you guys the ability to do this, and obviously there's going to be money involved and some creative input and things like that. So just like whatever I can control, I can control. But I kind of have to let somebody do their own thing. You know, it's just like one of my favorite interviews that I did for my video game books, The Minds Behind the Games. I interviewed the creator of Wonder Boy in Monster World.
Oh, cool.
Nisha Sawa-san. So the thing is, Wonder Boy in Monster World has been reskinned and made into so many different games, like Adventure Island and so Wampum, and it's just like, so they took the engine of Wonder Boy and they made all of these other games. So he doesn't own the rights to the characters, he just owns the rights to the engine. So some of these games are great and some of them are shit. So my question to him was like, well, how do you feel about that? And he was just like, well, once I create a piece of art and I finish, it's no longer mine anymore. Whatever anyone wants to feel about it is completely up to them. And that feeling is true. It's true to them. It's real to them. And I'm cool with that. So it's just like, for me, the way people feel about the comic is super important to me. What they get out of the comic is super important to me. I'd like for some of those feelings to be carried over to other media. Like, I'm not going to lie and say that I don't want a TV show. I'm not going to lie and say that I don't want a video game. I'm not going to say that I wouldn't want a motion comic. I like, there's so many things. I think this character has a lot of potential, but the thing is, like, you have to make sure, like, if Netflix calls and then Amazon calls, which brand is a better fit? Like, you've got to make the right decision. So like, my thing is like, I absolutely would make sure that the right team was in place to do those things. I've already spoken to several video game developers that are interested in making a Conjuring video game, and we're only like 2 issues in, and they're just bro, we could totally do something with this. And I'm like, let's wait.
Yeah.
Let's develop the audience a little bit and let me tell more of the story, you know. But to answer your question, sure. And I mean, one of the other mitigating factors is like, if I was single, I don't know how I would feel about it. But I'm a husband, I'm a father, and the environment that Conjuring takes place in, this dirty, grungy New York City, that's my life every day. You know, like, I've been a college professor for 15 years. I earn a 6-figure salary, but I don't own a home, you know, and I bust my ass every single day to put food on the table and all these things. And it's just like, I want that like white picket fence. I want a basement with like a man cave in it. You know, like I want to have 2 cars, you know, one for the wife and one for me, you know, like I want to, you know what I'm saying? So it's just,
100% for sure.
Yeah,
so
totally.
It's not even, I love when people like, cause this, I hear this a lot. Like, I remember one time, a student, she was super punk, you know, and she was just like, she Googled me and she found pictures of me with like really long hair and stuff like that. And she was like, oh, you're like a sellout now. She's like, you used to be so punk and now you're a sellout. And I was just like, do you understand that I am like the epitome of punk? I'm like, even though I'm a father and a husband now, I'm like, punk, the punk aesthetic, the punk lifestyle is all DIY, getting shit done by yourself, helping other people, finishing your projects, having a backbone, standing up for the things that you believe in. It's not having a tongue ring or a tattoo or wearing a Misfit shirt and stuff like that. So
exactly.
So, but it's like, you know, so it's just like, I would make sure that if the Conjuring property translated to another sphere of entertainment, that those ideals would be like in place throughout. So I hope that answers your question.
No,
it totally makes sense. I always you know, because there are creators, and it's perfectly fine if creators don't want to sell their IP or their products. You know, that's fine. I don't want to be Kiss. Like, I don't want to have like Conjuring condoms and stuff like that.
There you go. Conjuring coffin and
like,
there's Kiss condoms.
Yeah, there's Kiss.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea.
There is. I swear. Yeah. I grew up on Kiss. I know that.
Well, and I love Kiss too. So. But,
no, you don't want to have the Conjuring, you know, Heinz ketchup bottle or anything. But like, I get it. You know, at a certain point, you know, it's okay if you want to make that step. That's what I was trying to say. Like some people, there's a balance. There's some things you can adapt and some things you don't have to. Like I think it's perfectly fine if, like you said, as long as it's in the right hands, that you could tap into new audience. And the way I look at it really is like, that's just another opportunity to make more of a financial impact on yourself, to give yourself more room to work on your craft.
More, yeah. And
so like, I'll give you an example. So like I'm working on my 7th video game book. My books are in Harvard, Yale, Stanford, UCLA, like over 100 colleges, over 100 public libraries worldwide. And I have spoken to several video game developers. And one of them is the guy that did Star Wars Episode 3 on Xbox. He did Buffy the Vampire Slayer on Xbox. He did Desert Jungle, Urban Strike. He did Strider. And he's read Conjury 0 and Conjury 1. And I'm just like, bro, if it gets to the point, you're my guy. Because I know you will make the game that needs to be made. You know?
There you go, yeah.
And he was just like, yeah, man, absolutely. So he's in business. He's in business for himself now. He's an indie guy now, and he's been in the video game industry for 35 years. Tony Barnes, look him up. He's amazing. He runs Retro Ninja Games. I'm actually doing voiceover on like 3 of his games right now. So it's like somebody like that. I totally trust him. I would give him the keys to my IP.
And I mean, episode 3 is still one of the dopest.
Yeah, I was gonna say the episode 3 video game adaptation. I was like, say what you will about that movie, but god damn, that game was fun.
The lightsaber battles in that game got such a bad rap, but it sold over 4 million copies. That's the thing. So I don't
know how many times I played that game over again. Like, and I've been craving it lately. I've been on this nostalgic kick, and
so good.
I was playing the Spawn Armageddon game at my friend's house recently, and I was just like, damn, I missed this.
That's another super underrated game. I played the shit out of that game. Dude, yes, I got that for a Christmas gift when I was like 20, maybe older, maybe like 23, 24.
It's funny also, like the age difference too, because I mean, I was probably, I don't even know how old I was. I was like in middle school, high school doing that. And it's just one of those.
I probably wrote Conjury like when you guys were like 2. How old are you guys?
I'm 29, turning 30 in October.
Oh, okay. All right. So you were like 10.
Yeah, I was like 10. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I knew the idea of a comic when I was 10. I knew Spider-Man and shit existed.
Hell yeah.
I was doing like Spawn tracings at that age too, just like and Kiss stuff, and when Psycho Circus and all that came out.
Hell
you know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
Damn, dude, that's it's one of those things too. Like, Neil Gaiman with Sandman. He's fought for 20 years against other people making a Sandman adaptation until we found the perfect one, and it's one of the, you have to know when it's true, and you can't just jump for the buck, as easy as that may sound and as nice as that may sound, just there in front of you. But having that mentality and that self-control is really what's going to carry you through to major success later on.
Yeah, exactly.
Knowing how to make that.
I mean, that's sacrifice. The reason why like Kieran and I signed with Lesser Known, because Mark was like, yeah, well, like, we're not going to just buy, Zero. Like, we want you to continue the story. So it was just like, that's what we want. So it's just like the rest of 2021, we're probably going to do like 2 more mini comics, like 12 pages each. And then 2022, we're going to just totally like kick ass. So, and the thing is, that's funny is, it's like Mark is writing like 5 comics right now. He's a beast.
God, he's a beast.
But work. I have like 10 full issues of Conjury done. They've been done for a long time. And so it's just like whenever we get to the next point where Mark is like, all right, the next batch of comics go out, I'm just like, Kieran, here's the script. And he's just like, oh, okay.
Cool. Let's get to work.
So yeah, so it's just like I probably have enough of the story to get us through to like 2023. And the thing is too, I've been fine tuning and editing and tightening. So it's just like I'm super proud of like the narrative and where it is so far. And it's just like it's gothic, it's gothic, it's noir, it's crime noir and stuff like that. But the character is like superhuman. Like he's a human, And like Sarita totally changes the entire formula, because it's just like they're both broken. It's like if you read one, she's all by herself.
Yeah.
You know, her son's older, and he's just like kind of hanging on. We're gonna find out a lot about her son. Her son is awesome. But it's just like these are two people that, like, if you saw them on the street, they are so polar opposite.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, completely.
But they so need each other, you know, and like you guys are gonna see the relationship between the two of them is ridiculous. And the thing is, I don't want to give too much away.
Don't want to spoil it.
But I will tell you that there is a reason why Condry dropped that gun that has nothing to do with a headache. And there's a reason why Condry survived a point blank gunshot to the head. So we're going to find out a lot about him in the next issue. We're going to find out a lot about her. And then the Halloween issue is going to be awesome.
Oh, nice.
So it's just like Condry 0 has a lot of action in it. Condry 1 is like narrative and some action at the end. Condry 2 is pretty much just going to be like filling in the gaps of like why Sarita stayed with him and like who he really is. And then the next one is just like kind of like them working together, and you're just like, I like where this is going. This is really cool. So it's been really fun to put those pieces together. So
that's kind of like a 2-part question. One, how much do you have planned for Condry, like in the estimate issue amount, and how long have you basically been done with the script, like with all 10 scripts, and just been like waiting for the right opportunity at this point?
I've been done with all 10 scripts for probably like 16 years.
Nice.
Oh wow.
And then like every like couple of years I would try and find another artist, and then I would read through everything again. And it was like confirmation that it was good, because it's like I probably have like 5 or 6 close friends that have read everything, and they're just like, dude, this is like $1 million idea. Like, this is a great character. This is something that's like really cool. Why can't you find an artist? And it would just be like, I mean, if somebody like was really bored and went through like all of my Facebook posts, they would see like every 5 years, I'm like, can an artist fucking message me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Can we do business? And I would meet somebody and start talking to them, and I would let them read the story, and they'd be like, oh, this is really cool. And then they would show me, and I would just be like, nope, not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And once I saw Kieran's stuff, it was just like, yeah, this is going to work. This is absolutely going to work. And the thing is, the reason why Kieran and I work so well together is because Kieran wants it just as bad as I do.
Nice.
So the first question was, I mean, it's been like 16 years. What was the other question?
How many issues do you have planned?
So the thing is, like, I probably have like 10 like full 24-page issues written. But the thing is, this is the thing. So like we've done Condry 0, 1, and then Kieran is penciling Condry 2 right now. And those are still technically part of Condry 1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because they're only like, I just went through it before we started this, and it's like 16 pages altogether, right?
Yeah. So that's not even the first comic yet, So it's just like, and the thing is though too, like after we get past those 10 scripts, I have so much more, and once you guys meet like the villain, and the thing is like Mike Mignola is a big influence on me. And the thing that I like about Mike Mignola is people don't necessarily equate this to Mike Mignola, but Hellboy is kind of like Friends, the comic, because it's like every single one of the characters in Hellboy can stand on their own 2 feet, and they could be their own series.
Oh yeah.
So it's just
definitely.
like you look at Friends, and it's like Ross could have his own show, Rachel could have her own show, so it's just like Joey didn't do so well, but he had his own show for a while. But it's like
he actually had his own show.
But a miniseries is a series, you know what I mean?
Like, so that's the thing. It's just like as I start introducing more characters, you guys are gonna be like, because like in issue 0, I allude to like Condry's time in the foster care system, and I mean they have young Hellboy. So if they have young Hellboy, why can't we have a a 5-6 issue arc that's all like young Condry?
Yeah, totally.
So, when we find out that his dad died, his dad was a cop. Why can't we have a 6-issue arc that like leads to the events that led to his father's death. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like I've been building a universe basically for like 20 years. So it's just like I can totally it's ready. I totally want it. Like for now, goal number one is to get through all of that content that I wrote when I was 17, 18 years old. So the first goal was to get it published. That's done. But now the next goal is to get all those 10 issues, to get all of that out of there. And then after that, obviously, you guys alluded to it. It's like, if you can get an indie comic to 50 issues, you did something right.
Yeah.
You know? So I think once I get there, then, I mean, that's going to take like 5 years, but I'm totally down.
And ready for it.
So, that's probably like just the beginning of it all, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna say two things really. The first being I just fucking love how you're like, this shit's dope. I'm excited to work on it. I can't wait for other people to like read it, and I can't wait to share it with everyone. I think that is an awesome mentality. Like legitimately, I think it's great to have that mentality when it comes to creating something. As like Brandon said earlier, and we always talk about how we want to be comic book creators, and you know we've got scripts that we've been working on, and you have those moments where you're like, fuck, this isn't gonna work out, or what the hell am I doing? I can't even find an artist. But like when you see someone that's like, I'm doing it, I'm making it happen, I'm gonna fucking write these scripts even if it takes 20 years. And I think that is one of the best things a writer can do. Straight up.
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, you know what the thing is too, it's like I was 18 years old. I had no formal writing training. I wrote all of them, and then I went to college and I studied journalism. And I've written for like 35 newspapers. I've written and contributed to like the New York Times, the New York Daily News, the Syracuse Post Standard. I've written for several magazines. I write for Old School Video Gamer right now. And I just continue to refine my work. I'm a former NBC editor. I mean, I've covered 2 Olympics, a presidential campaign, you know, so it's just like I learned on the fly. And then, like I said, every 4 or 5 years, I would be like, I'm doing all this stuff in journalism that I always wanted to do, covering professional teams, interviewing my favorite wrestlers, my favorite hockey players, my favorite baseball players, my favorite actors and actresses, my favorite musicians. Why can't I get this comic book published? And then I just realized that it's just like, it wasn't my story wasn't the problem. It's finding an artist is hard. Finding an artist.
Yes,
it's so struggle.
I mean, it was easier for me to find the woman that I was destined to spend the rest of my life with than it was to find an artist.
Thank you.
You know?
Finally.
Oh my gosh.
Someone who can finally understand. I mean, other people get it too, but like
I remember there were times when I would just be like sitting in my house and just like reading through the story and just going like, I'm going to turn this into a book. And I went through that where I took everything out of like the storyboard format and I started writing it as like a book.
A narrative,
as a narrative. And I wrote everything. I wrote all 10 of those issues out as a narrative. And it was like 175 pages. And then I'm just like, it's not finished. There's no ending, so it can't be a book. So then ultimately, I mean, it wasn't a waste of time because I was really proud of like the writing because it was different from comic book writing, you know? And ironically, whenever I give Kieran a script, I don't give him a comic book script. And this baffles people. This totally baffles people. What I'll do is I'll be like, okay, just like 2,000 words, that's totally enough for like 10, 12 pages. Kieran, read this. Let's turn this into 12 pages. So then Kieran will read it and go, bro, this is like a movie. And I'm like, you have carte blanche. You can do whatever you want. And then he'll draw everything that I've written in 12 pages. So it's just like, if you read Country Zero, there's like a scene where like a guy is walking around with like an Easter bunny like outfit and stuff like that. But it's like almost like dreamy. And if you read the actual narration, maybe one day I'll release like all of like the actual writing, you know? But it was just like Kandri is just, he's like sitting like in an alley somewhere. And he's just like, man, all the shit that they tell you when you're a little kid, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit, you know? And it's like, it was like, it's really dark and stuff. And that's what Kieran read for Kandri Zero. And he drew it all. And then what I have to do is I have to take like those 2,000 words that he's read. And and now I have to fit in the narration in all of those spots. So that's how you get from this big narrative to, you know, New York City, the city that never sleeps. It's, you know, it's disgusting on the inside, blah, blah, blah. So it's just like, now I have to compromise and turn a literary script into a comic book. So it's a lot more work than the average comic book writer. But what it does is, like, I feel like a comic book writer's biggest job is to get your artist so fucking excited that they draw the best art that they possibly can. Not, and this is the thing, I'm sure somebody from Marvel or DC is going to listen to this and go, oh, but you're not writing it the Marvel way. You're not writing it the DC way. And the thing is, I don't give a fuck. I don't care about like sweatshop comics. You know, I don't want to tell my artist, oh, in this panel you draw this, and in this panel you draw that, because it's not fun for the artist. Like, I mean, I speak to Kieran like probably more than I speak to like 95% of my friends, you know, because it's like we're creating something that we both care about, you know? So it's just like, I feel like that type of synergy and that way of making a comic is so much better than being like, oh, in this panel here, and then it can only have this much and gutter and bleed and it's like, stop. We'll figure all that shit out later. Let's just tell a dope story, you know?
Oh yeah,
that's so cool that you have an artist that, for one, that you connect with so well, but also that chemistry and finding that, you know, you basically are writing a love letter to your artist with every script.
Oh yeah,
you know?
absolutely. It's so funny too, because like when Mark saw what became Condry Zero, he's like, are you guys gonna have like panels in your comic? And I'm like, probably at some point. And it's like, you see like in Condry 1, we have that page, and it's just like, it reminds me of like something out of like a comic book strip, or like Charlie Brown, where like Sarita is walking and then you see Condry getting closer and closer. And that's like the only like semblance of panel work that we have, you know?
That's very true.
And, you know, so the thing is, it's just like, David Mack's work on Daredevil has had a profound influence on me. And I love like dreamy type of comics. So like Preludes and Nocturnes and things like that, where it's just like, it's just bouncing. And the thing that I love about Kieran's art is when you let Kieran go, your eyes just wander, you know? So like, you know where the text is going, it's telling a story, but if you look really close, you'll see something that you didn't see the first time. And I think
so much detail. And it's gorgeous.
So thank you. So I mean, that's like, I want to create an experience and not just something that's like, oh, this is a comic and this is a panel and this is a blah, 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 blah. It's like, stop. Like, and you can see that sometimes where like you're reading a Marvel or a DC comic and it's just like, this is such like they're just sticking to like the formula.
Oh yeah, totally. You know? It's one of those things
like,
that it's all everywhere.
It doesn't do anything for me. It's like, how many times have you guys been on a date and it's just like the woman or the man or whatever, they're just like, they're put together, and you're like, you could tell they put their lipstick on a certain way and blah, 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 and they're beautiful or handsome or whatever, but you don't feel anything. Like, you know that like, this is somebody that you should connect with, like physically or whatever, and you're just like, yeah, they're hot, but it's just like, and then you meet a girl that like, or a guy, or their hair isn't combed, you know, and they're like, they don't give a fuck, and you just look at them and you're like, there's something about you that I need to find out what you're about, you know? And that's like, I think those are the best people. Those are the best comics. That's the best music, where like you hear it at first and you're like, this sounds completely different from the shit that I usually listen to, but you know what? I'm going to give it a chance. So it's like, that's what I'm trying to create with this comic.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the beauty with comics, is there's no, I mean, like I said, the formula is all over the big two. You can see how, you know, again, that's fine. That's their thing. That's what they're known for, and when it works, but that's its own genre.
Absolutely.
With, again, the emphasis on like independent and creator owned, it's one of those things that like, there's no proper way to go about it, and there's no restrictions. You could write your script however you want. Like, you just told us you wrote basically a short story and that was your script. And it's like, there's no reason to have to say exactly what you're saying. The panel needs to look like this or that. It's just, you're allowed this freedom. And that freedom is what gives you like the creative energy and creates that like uniqueness to the book.
It's the only thing that I think a comic should have, every issue, I feel, should have like some semblance of like an arc, you know? like a beginning, a middle, and like something that leads you to the next issue. That's the only thing I think a comic needs to have. And then it needs to have like something catch your eye in the beginning, like something sexy to bring you in, something to think about in the middle, and then something that you're concerned about that takes you to the next issue. I think.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's it.
Keep the readers coming back.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know?
It's why it's like the ultimate form of art, and especially. You know, of course, the big two, amazing, great. I love their stuff, and we're always gonna, check it out because Batman's
Absolutely.
badass, But it's like it's such a formula to a certain point that you don't get that. I think that's why when I was, really getting into comic books, one of the first things I read was Sandman Overture, and the way the art form just flows throughout that book is so different and unique from any other DC book. Was it Williams did that, Williams the third, and it was just insane. You know what I mean? You're spiraling the book around to read the text and whatnot. Like that kind of freedom that you get with independent books. I mean, I'm sure they gave it to Neil Gaiman because it's Neil Gaiman. You can tell him no at a certain point. But it's cool that you realize that, because there are independent books that stay restricted and they're trying to hit that DC Marvel style before just like playing with it, just play, just pick up. It's like playing an instrument. You want to pick it up and you want to fiddle around and see what works and what doesn't work. And have a couple of lousy albums before you have a good one, but you got to experiment and see what fits best and do that. Script format's really interesting. It's
like everyone that I tell that, they're like, that's a lot more work for you.
Hey, I mean,
it works.
Yeah,
but
if that's how you want to do it, then hell yeah. I mean, it's getting the job done. That's all that matters.
I think it's fun too to just see what Kieran, like we just went through it like yesterday. He showed me like the first 7 pages of Condry #2, and to see like his take, and then I just started already like plotting like where I'm putting stuff, and I'm just like, this is great, So
seeing it come together,
yeah, absolutely.
And Country, is it going to have physical issues as well, or is it just the first like lesser known ones that are going to have physical issues?
No. Condry Zero was already physical. Yeah, I mean, I've shipped comics. Condry Zero is already to people in the Air Force. It's in the UK. People in the UK have it already. People in Australia have it already. So it's just like I think Mark did like a 2000 print run, which is pretty standard for an indie comic. 2000. I covered a wrestling show this past Saturday, Battle Club Pro in New Jersey, and we gave out like 200 copies of Condry. So it's physical and digital. And the thing is, the physical copies are longer.
Oh, cool.
So there is probably like for Condry Zero, like 5 pages of extra bonus art.
Nice.
So like Kieran's sketches of Condry, like first sketches are in there, but then also too we have fun. So like we did like a crime, like a police file of him. We did a wanted poster of him and stuff like that, like a 2-page spread. It looks really sexy. So it's just like it's like a 20-page comic with only like 6 pages of story and then like 8 pages of bonus art and then like ads for other lesser known stuff and our sponsors and things like that. So it's a mini comic that has the feel of like a full comic, and it definitely feels like a full comic when you hold it in your hands.
So, yeah, that's awesome. It shows the care that goes into the book. It shows the amount of like dedication to delivering content, and also like it's really cool just to see like the process. Like for me, when I get like some sort of deluxe edition, I get to look at the script or like the bonus art. It's just awesome to see how like it all comes together.
Yeah, and we're gonna do that for every mini issue. So
that's great.
It's like for Condry 1, Kieran was like, what do you want to do for like bonus art? And I'm like, we're going to do like Sarita's dresser. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the dresser, like in her house. And he's like, so what would be on there? I'm like, a rosary, the mass card for her husband that passed away, a picture of her husband. And I'm like, all this stuff. And he drew it. And like, I wanted to cry when I saw it, because I was just like, this is exactly like what I saw in my head, So a picture of her son as a kid, a picture of her son as an adult, like what you would see on an old lady's dresser, some candy, some stray candy and stuff like that. Like it was just, so good.
It's so weird getting like artwork back as a writer, because you're just like, my thoughts they're here. I couldn't do this, but like you brought this to life for me. Like you're just like,
and he's so
grateful.
I tell him all the time, I'm like, one day, either it's going to happen with me or it's definitely going to happen with him where we're going to move on to something else. And I tell him every day, like, how appreciative I am and how good he is at what he does. He's super humble. You know, like I told him today, we were in a meeting and I was like, you are disgustingly humble. And I said the same thing to Charlie, because like Charlie Ragnarok is a massive talent. Like she's great. And I'm like, you are disgustingly humble. And like they laugh and stuff like that. Cause like, I mean, like today in the meeting, they called me like the Don King of comics, because the thing is like, I'm pitching them to podcasts all the time, because it's just like, if you're not getting your indie comic reviewed, if you're not on podcasts like this talking about your craft, how are people going to know who you are?
Exactly.
You know? So just like, I'll admit I'm probably not the most humble person in the world, but at the same time, I know I have a story and I want to share it. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I think there's a huge problem when you have amazing artists that all they do all day is post amazing art on their Instagram, but they don't know how to promote themselves. And it's like, if you put like all of the artists from lesser known, like their Instagram accounts up against mine, I might have more followers than all of them combined. And that's a shame. And that's something that I want to change, because they're so goddamn talented. And I want them to get on podcasts. Like when you guys were like, yeah, we'll interview Charlie, I was like, good, because she deserves like a platform. And like Franco and Katie, and like they're all mega talented, and I want to get them all like the respect that they need. I feel like Condry is like a big part of like lesser known, but then there's like all of these people that work for lesser known that just are gonna rock people big time when they start seeing like what these people are coming up with. So it's like, yeah, I'm promoting my comic, but at the same time too, I'm part of a team that is really unique and special. And like I have to say, and I have to give Mark a ton of credit. Like he's like, to make a wrestling reference, like he's totally like Paul Heyman. You know, he's totally capable. Like he put together like a ragtag group of people that are just so front loaded with talent.
Yeah.
And he's putting something very special together.
That's too cool. And, you know, that's the exciting part for us is, you know, especially in that approach, that's what we look for in the show, you know, and that's what me and Brandon decided to do to kind of, you know, get through the summer. Is like, hey, let's just find a bunch of people who are trying to like really break into the craft. Like we're trying to break into the craft, as, you know, we're a few stages behind. We're in the very beginning of a lot of this stuff, but we're just like, what can we learn right away? And how can these people show us stuff?
And the other main thing I was going to say is just like, you know, a lot of people outside the comic book community don't realize like the community is big, but it's not that big.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a lot of people know each other or know of each other because there's just not a whole lot of people trying to make a career in comic books. It's just, that's just the plain truth. Like there are a fair amount, but compared to other industries and other pop culture phenomenons or whatever, it's just like, you know, it's a community that needs to work together in all aspects.
And
absolutely.
Like, one of those things how we were talking about mainstream, you know, people kind of think of comics and they just think of the big superhero films, you know, like Avengers and Hulk and all that type of stuff, when they don't realize there's this entire like backlot of amazing stuff that's, you know, slowly kind of coming through the wedge work. And
it's so funny. It's so funny that you said that too, because like one of my favorite comic book writers and artists of all time is John Bacter. I'm not sure if you guys know who he is. But he did like this like 70s like Cleveland like punk graphic novel, and the name of it totally escapes me, but it's just basically like what it was like to be a kid during the 70s and grow up in Cleveland, which had this amazing punk and rock scene, and it was so good.
So was it punk rock and trailer park? Sorry, I was just looking it up.
So good, so amazing. It has like this kind of crumb art style to it.
Oh, cool.
You know?
Oh, okay.
Nice.
So, but what happens is like at the end of every interview, one of my favorite questions to ask is like, what else are you working on? Is there anything else that you want to say? Mm-hmm. So he was like, so, you know, I grew up in Cleveland in the 70s, and he's like, it kind of like, he goes, it wasn't all like punk and stuff like that. He goes, there was a bunch of other things. And he's like, I'm actually working on a graphic novel now that is about like a friendship that I had with somebody. I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, yeah, he goes, it was a super important time in my life. And he goes, actually, it was like a super popular, like crazy time in American history. And this person had a crazy effect on American civilization as we know it. And I'm like, okay. Like, I'm like, what, who are you talking about? And he's like, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh,
He goes,
okay.
he's like, I was friends with Jeffrey Dahmer. And he goes, we all knew that there was something wrong with him, and we didn't do anything about it. So he ended up creating My Friend Dahmer,
Oh, there
which
you
is like
go.
an
Oh,
amazing
Yes,
graphic novel.
that's where I've heard that name before. Okay, yes.
And then they made the movie and stuff like that. But it's just like, that's not a superhero book.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's just this amazing book, you know? And those stories deserve to be told too. And it's just like, in Condry's defense, like he does have powers. I mean, I just broke that. Like, no one knows that, but like, he has powers. You know, he's not your average human being. There's something else going on with him. I mean, he's not like a mutant or anything, but he's not your average human being. But I mean, at the same time too, he doesn't really know about his powers because he's homeless and he's just so hell bent on revenge. Like, no one's ever like kind of taken him to the side and been like, do you know like what you are? Do you know like what you could be? He's just so bent on like getting the next piece of the puzzle and killing the next person that, you know, he can and stuff. So, it has like some of the elements of like those great indie comics, but it does like take a lot from like really solid, fun 80s and 90s comic books too. So, you know, it's an interesting blend that I think a lot of hardcore comic book fans will like, and then people that like interesting stories will like as well.
There you go. Nice. It's definitely, I mean, it's so cool because it's free on lesser known comics right now. Like,
Yeah,
if you want
everything is free on lesser known, which is the best part.
Literally
Yeah.
everybody listening can go read. I was going to say go listen. Can go read all the comics on that website right now digitally. Like,
all you have to do is create an account and you are good to go. They will email the PDFs directly to your email, and then you got them. They're yours.
I literally got Condry 01 in like 10 seconds. So it is that easy, everybody.
And I mean, with the Kickstarters they have going on, they've had phenomenal success. At the time of this recording, one of them just ended for batch number 2. So I assume another one's going to be going up pretty soon. You know, as we wind down the conversation a little bit, is there any other projects, comic book wise, that you're wanting to get out there and get going now that Condry's finally taking its steps into life?
So what happened was, I have a friend that's an actor, and he's a good friend of mine. I've interviewed him several times. It started off as like a professional relationship, and then it grew into a friendship. And he's like, bro, you need to write a play. And I was like, don't do that. I'm like, don't do that. And he's like, why? I'm like, because I'll do it. I'm like, don't throw it out there. This was like my third book I was just finishing up my third book. And I ended up writing a play in about a week, and super proud of it. But then COVID.
Yep, that's how it goes when COVID got.
So then what ended up happening was a mutual acquaintance of mine that I've interviewed several times that runs a video game company. I pitched him the play as a video game, and he was like, "This is really cool." He goes, "We're interested, but we want to know how you would work with us. Like, we're not just going to give you like the opportunity to, you know, to do a game when we don't know. Like, we know that you've written books, we know you've done voiceover on other video games, but like in-house, we want to see how you work." So I ended up writing quite a bit for an upcoming RPG that they're getting ready to release, and I'm doing voiceover on one of their games. So I don't know where the game stands right now, but once Condry came to life, I ended up adapting the whole, you know, theatrical production, and I'm just like, this would be a kick-ass comic. So it would be a graphic novel. So it's basically about a professional wrestler that is a jobber. He loses all of his matches, and he gets his ass kicked pretty much every match. But he has the nicest gear, and he has the prettiest valet, and everyone's kind of like, every time this guy comes out, he looks like $1,000,000, He's got the prettiest valet, like, but he gets his ass kicked like every night. Like, how the hell does he like afford this? Like, what's his motivation for this?
Mhm.
And the answer is easy. He robs banks. So during the day, him and his girlfriend is his valet, and she's his getaway driver.
Oh.
And they rob banks together. And at night, he wrestles because he loves it.
Oh,
And he's a super of a building, so he fixes like, you know, toilets and stuff when he's not robbing banks and stuff like that. And they're just like saving money so they can like kind of like have like that great American life and stuff like that. But it's like what he wants more than anything else is to be like a respected professional wrestler, like to be champion. And probably giving away too much of the story, but that's okay. But what ends up happening one night is the champion pulls like a Jeff Hardy, and he shows up like totally wasted. And our main character has to lose the match, but everyone knows that it's just like, so when the match is over, he stands up and he grabs the mic and he's like, enough of this shit. And he's just like, I spend more money on my gear than I've ever made like in the ring, and I'm sick of getting cut open. I'm sick of getting stepped on. I'm sick of like, and he like grabs like the championship belt and he's like, this is worth nothing because like you're a piece of shit, like to the champion. And like the crowd is just like,
oh fuck.
oh my God, this guy is amazing. And they start chanting his name. And the promoter is like, what you did was absolutely wrong. You're a piece of shit. But come back next week, you're going to win your first match. And then all of a sudden it just like starts to, but he's still robbing banks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's just like it's like Dog Day Afternoon meets The Wrestler. You know,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
That's awesome.
And I would love once Condry gets like going a little bit more, that like I told Kieran, like my main goal is to like continue to work on Condry, but then to produce like one graphic novel, one standalone graphic novel a year.
Okay, cool.
No,
okay.
that's
that's a great goal. Yeah,
nice.
Definitely.
So like in a perfect world, that's what I would be. And I think the name of the story is called The Job, because like in wrestling, when you lose, you're doing the job, you know, and it's just like when you rob a bank, it's the job, you know? So it's just like, so I would love to get that, that out there eventually at some point. That's another goal of mine. So I've already got like a professional wrestling promotion that is going to allow us to like use their promotion as like, you know, use their likenesses and like their titles and stuff like that. Wow. So it's just like,
that's awesome.
It's pretty crazy. It's pretty wild. So
your whole career's been like networking to get to this point where you're
for 20 years. It's like the voice acting, the video game books, the comic books, the journalism, the teaching. It's just like everything is just like,
that's how it is, you know?
And finally it's like the pieces are just like starting to come together. It's just like, so I've met so many people that have been better than me, more talented than me, but they just didn't have the consistency, and they made excuses for themselves, and they gave up way too early. And it's just like, I've been told so many times, like, they're like, the thing that separates you is you want it more than anybody else. Or like, oh, you don't sleep as much as everybody else. And I'm like,
that's right.
So when you're sleeping, I'm reading my shit over again and I'm tightening, you know? So, I mean, I've never been anyone's first choice, but I'm always their best choice. So
that's consistency is key.
Yeah. You know,
let me just say, I love that your story is about a wrestler, because my comic I'm working on right now involves wrestling. So
there's some, and that's the thing too. There's some really great wrestling graphic novels out there, and I'm not talking about like the WWE, like Seth Rollins comic book and stuff like that.
No, not those.
There's Ed Cool. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. He used to write for the Leisure Suit Larry video games.
Oh my gosh, nice.
He has I just interviewed him about a wrestling book that he came out with. There's a whole bunch of great like fictional wrestling graphic novels out there. So that's definitely it's a niche within a niche. But it's just like, and mine, it's just like, I can totally, and this is so wild that I'm even telling you guys this. I can totally see like this character becoming a character that like has a cameo in Condry, because like this fictional like New York City that I've created is like super dark and super gritty and stuff like that. And the job totally takes place in like a gritty, like New York City, you know? So it's just like, maybe one day Condry needs to be transported from one place to another. And he gets this hot ass, like, you know, getaway driver that has an escort that happens to be a professional wrestler that don't take any shit either. Like they would totally get along, you know, like it would be like a fun little, he's not a superhero or anything, but it's just like him and his wife are trying to earn extra money. So if she has to drive this guy away from like Condry, away from like, you know, a gang that's after him and stuff like that, she's not going to do it by herself.
Yeah.
You know?
Dude,
So
that's cool. It's like a shared universe without intentionally doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Creating your own universe.
Yeah. So
dude, this is unfortunately we're running out of time now. I could probably talk to you for hours at this point.
I've been kidnapped before, believe me. I've been on a couple of podcasts before. I remember last year I was on a podcast and they invited me over like their home. And this was before COVID actually. This was like probably like July of 2019.
Okay.
And it was supposed to be like an hour and a half. And I was gone for like 5 hours. And I'm like messaging my wife on my phone and I'm just like, I don't know when I'm coming home. And she's like, why? I'm like, they don't stop asking me questions. I'm like, I'm having a great time. I'm like, but I'm so tired. And they haven't
it's been 5 hours.
Yeah.
Dude, honestly, we would probably end up doing the same thing. We need to get you back on the show. There's so much more we could talk about. On me, both Brandon and I side, it sounds like we have the same. You know, it's always cool talking to someone like you because it gives us like that mindset as, you know, creators of like, okay, I am on the right path.
And let me just say, like, I respect the consistency and I respect anybody that can come on here and just say like, this is what I do and I stick to it and you know, I'm making it happen. But
it's so hard, man. It's like God, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say you're just living that dream I want, man. I literally just took a test today to get certified to be a teacher. Yeah. And like I'm trying to be a teacher that writes comics. That's literally the goal. And
it's like with my students all the time. I mean, I hate to say it like this, but it's like I've taught college for 15 years and I'm surrounded by so many people. I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this, but I really don't even give a shit. I'm surrounded by so many people that like teach things that they have no business teaching.
Right.
You know, and it's just like I tell my students all the time, if you want to write for newspapers, I can teach you how to do that. If you want to write for magazines, I could teach you how to do that. If you want to write for websites, I could teach you how to do that. If you want to voice act, I could teach you that. If you want to write comics, if you want to write books, I could teach you that now. So it's like my whole thing is it's just like, if I'm going to teach you how to do it, I have to know how to do it myself. You know, like if you want a podcast, I could teach you how to podcast. I've been on over 100 podcasts, you know, so I feel like being able to do that during the day, the schedule isn't that demanding either. I can show up to work early. I have my own office. I could work on my stuff. And then I still have plenty of time to grade students' papers and then to have students in my office and to talk to them and really like engage with them and stuff like that. So it's just like, Brandon, you can totally do that. You could be a comic book writer and a teacher. It's totally possible. You know, the first year, probably not, because the first year you're planning all of your lesson plans for the first time. But then after that, it's like, because I mean, I teach like 6 different classes, but I've taught all 6 different classes like 20 times. So it's just like I change my syllabus every semester, but I know what I'm gonna do. Yeah. You know it's more about like catering. Yeah. You know, so now it's like I have all this time to write video game books, to do voice acting, to work on my comics, to do to run a site and stuff. So it's just like my whole thing is my biggest thing, the most important thing to me is that I never want to peak. Like I remember I had friends in high school that were so fucking cool. And now I look at them and I'm like, I'm the cool guy now. Right? Dude, you know,
I'm making it happen.
What the fuck are you
doing? because I never stopped, you know, and it's just like people joke around with my wife and I and they're like, you guys like are reverse aging, you know? And it's because like we take care of ourselves and we do like what we have to do and stuff like that. And I mean, that's the way you want to be. Like Mark and I are probably like the 2 oldest people at lesser known. Everyone else is like significantly younger, but it's just like, I know that like if we ever had to have like a stamina contest, like who can work on their stuff the longest without sleeping,
You got it.
Those 22, 23-year-old kids, man, like, let's go. Like, I'll hang with you as long as I have to, you know? So it's just like, I never want to peak. My list is not contained to a bucket. You know, there are so many things that I want to do and continue to do. And like, once I accomplish goals, I just want to move on to new things, and I come up with new things all the time. And it's just like, I feel like that's like the recipe.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, totally.
You know,
stay busy, stay productive.
You got to stay busy, especially during COVID. So many people made excuses.
Oh,
you know, so
man.
many people put on the COVID-15 and everyone's miserable and stuff like that. And it's just like, you got to keep plowing through. You got to keep pushing. You can't make excuses, you know,
because you got to get like that messy stuff out too. You know, you got to get the bad stuff out just as much as you got to get the good stuff in. I mean, that's when, you know, Brandon came onto the show at the beginning of COVID and everything, where I was just like, hey man, I have this podcast, come hang out. And now he's like the co-host because he just persistent and just like always was just trying to do more. It's one of those things. It worked. And consistency. It's the only way anything, and it's going to be a slow burn, but anything that's quick isn't going to be worth it in the end anyways, you know?
Yeah.
And especially with Condry, dude, this sounds like it was a slow burn, but so worth it, you know? It's finally happening. Yeah.
It's all building up to this.
It's crazy. It's just like, I have like a framed copy in my bedroom, and it's just like, I look at it and I'm like,
it happened.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
You know, but now it's like, am I going to be that person? Because I mean, that's the thing too. I've had people go to me, oh, where'd you get this printed? And I'm like, it's not self-published. I didn't self-publish it. I could have self-published it because like once Kieran and I finished it, we could have totally self-published it. And I don't have anything against anyone that self-publishes their comic or self-publishes their book. But like by next year, I'll have 7 books published with a publisher. My comic has been published by a publisher and stuff like that. And I just feel like that's the way you got to go, you know?
That's right. That's a good way to put it too.
You know, you've got to like, credibility and legitimacy are super important. And then the thing is too, it's just like, man, you're not an artist unless you're making somebody else money in the beginning, you know?
That's true too.
I've spoken to so many video game developers that like, they've made like Electronic Arts billions and they made a couple 100,000, you know? It's like, it's part of the creative struggle. And this is the thing too. Back in the day, you know, if you were like a singer or a songwriter, like before technology, you just traveled from place to place. You played your music, you met some hot people, men, women, you had your fun because you were so freaking cool. You know, you got some free food, you got enough money to get to the next town, you know, like that's what like a creative life, being a creator is supposed to be, you know, and we've attached, because of technology and stuff like that, we've like, oh yeah, make a comic, make millions of dollars and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's not really like that.
It happened once, guys. It happened once. You know?
So like for me, I mean, like already it's been like the first comic's been out since like March, and it's just like, but I've gotten emails from people like all over the world so far that are just like, yo, when's the next one coming out? And for me, it's like, that's where it's at. I bet. Yeah. You know? Yeah. That's why, you know, so it's like, I've gotten already like feedback from people that are like, Condry 0 was like really dark and gritty, but it's just like Condry 1, you're a little bit of a softie. You can write like a female character. And I'm just like, I'm a real writer, you know, like I've been doing this for a long time, you know, like I want this to feel real. I want Sarita to feel real. I don't want Condry to be just like this big hulking scumbag. Like he's well-rounded. He's a real person, you know? And like, again, that goes back to that conversation with Chris Claremont, you know, write them like they're real characters, you know? It's like they're real people.
And move and breathe, and you have to know.
You know, they, as one of my creative writing professors always told me, you know, they got to pop off the page.
Yeah. You know, so I mean, at the end of the day, it's just like, we're just 2 issues into like an indie comic, and some person could be like, oh, it's just 2 issues of an indie comic, but it's just like, this has been really fun. This has been a crazy ride, and I'm not ready for it to be over. And I'm telling you guys already, just from the pencils, Condry 2 is going to be sexy as hell. And I cannot wait for people to read it. Like they're going to, if they weren't interested in the main character in the beginning, I think that's going to start to change, and then they're going to see how important Sarita is moving on, and they're going to see that like this is the beginning of something much deeper and much more fleshed out than like what they thought it was in Conjury Zero. Some of that is still there, but it's much more than the sum of its parts.
So you heard it here first, guys. You comic book flippers and scalpers, Conjury 0 and 1. This will be the book you're gonna be chasing soon. Dude, Patrick, it has been just like a mind-blowing hour of just like everything. T'Challa.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be an episode if my cat didn't mess something up at the end.
I know, right?
my dog has been sleeping next to my feet the entire time. So
I didn't pick up my cat this week, so she didn't bother me this episode. I was gonna say before we go, I always like to just ask these random ass questions.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot and hit you with really random ones just for fun.
Yeah.
You put a lot of video game stuff on there, on your podcast, on your Instagram, and I just got to know top 3 to come to mind immediately.
Oof. Pokemon Red.
Hell yeah.
Final Fantasy 7. WCW NWO Revenge.
Oh wow.
Oh,
not No Mercy.
Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is too, like Revenge is the best-selling wrestling game on the Nintendo 64 all time.
I didn't know that.
And I love No Mercy, but the thing is, like the first shipment of No Mercy, like the first 50,000 carts that went out, they were shipped without batteries, meaning they didn't save properly. And I ironically have still to this day, because I have over 3,000 video games. I still have a copy of No Mercy that does not save. So as good as No Mercy was and how much fun I had playing it, I could never save anything. So like
you're just like, fuck that game.
Spend 4 hours creating a character. Oh boy.
That's why I love like WrestleMania 2000, and like I have a English patch version of Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, which is the Japanese version of No Mercy.
Mhm.
And yeah, I play the hell out of that because I could customize and like create like 80 guys. So that's a fun freaking experience.
That's dope.
So those are probably like my 3 favorite. I love Pokemon. Like, oh, I live and breathe Pokemon.
Hey, so do I. I love hearing that because I feel like I'm always the only one that still plays like Sword and Shield, for instance.
Oh yeah, I play less because like of my kids and stuff like that. But like I waited. I was at a midnight,
Hell yeah.
To get Sword and Shield, and my wife was just like, "You have 2 kids, and you're gonna go pick up Pokemon at midnight." I'm like, "Yes."
And then they're gonna watch me play the game.
Yeah.
my daughter loves Pokemon, So it's so funny too because like I did a video the other day on my Instagram, and she was reading an issue of X-Men, and she's 4, so she doesn't really read yet. But I was like, "What's your favorite comic?" And she just points to like her copy of Conjury. So it's just like that's the reason why we do all this stuff.
Yeah,
like people write comics because of the memories that they form. Video games too. I mean, I'm sure, like Brandon, you remember the first time, like your Metapod evolved into Butterfree.
Oh, dude.
Like
hell yeah.
Like it's like the same thing. I still remember to this day, like where I was when Aerith died in Final Fantasy VII, and the first time I read the Gwen Stacy death arc, and I remember Green Goblin throwing her, off the bridge. I was on a train coming home from the East Village in New York City, and I was going over the bridge, and the sun was setting, and I'm just reading it, and I'm just like, kind of basically like on the bridge or near the bridge where this like would have happened as it's happening, and I'm just like, wow, like, and that's 1973.
Yeah.
Like that's like 50 years old, and it still hits you every single time, So
it's that connection we have.
Yeah. So that's what I want to do, So it's like when Kieran penciled those panels of Sarita walking, and I started like writing in the story. It's like that's how I want people to like kind of feel. I want people to kind of be like, wow, this woman, she's like all alone. She's like, oh, she's broken, and like she's respected in the community. They know her. She's loved, but she's really lonely, and she wants something new and different in her life. And I guarantee she didn't expect it to be a 6'9" man holding a gun to her head, but that's what she got, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, so yeah, all of those moments that I had as a kid, those all totally like find their way into the comic book, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, dude, amazing choices. And you could tell it's like a devoted devotion to the craft at that point.
I own like every Pokemon game. Like,
Ayo, you know? So do I.
The spin-offs like Conquest, Trozei, like Dash, all of them. So,
do you read the mangas?
No, I should.
The first volume, like the original one that came out back when Pokemania was a thing. That thing is apparently like phenomenal. But
I'll tell you guys like a super quick Pokemon story. So when I was writing my first book, The Minds Behind the Game. So basically what I do is I interview video game developers.
Oh, wow.
And I get them to tell me the behind the scenes stories of how the games are made, you know? So my first book, I mean, I didn't know that it was going to turn into the series and there were going to be 7 books in the series and stuff like that. So it's just like doing the first book, I'm like trying to hit all of the games that I love, you know? So I contact Nintendo and I'm cool with them because, you know, I've been working in the video game industry for quite some time. And I'm like, I have to get to Jiri-san to talk about Pokemon.
Dang.
And they end up sending me like a 40-page PDF of like every single fact you could ever want about Pokemon. Like sales. And I'm just like, this is great. But I'm like, I need to interview him because this book is different. It's not me telling the story. It's the person that actually made the game telling the story. And they're like, yeah, we can't do that. So it's just like, it always hit me hard because it's like, I mean, I got the woman that ported Altered Beast on the Sega Genesis. Like I've gotten people that I had no business ever speaking to, you know, like I've interviewed like the founding fathers of electronic arts, you know?
Oh, wow.
But like I couldn't get like the creator of Pokemon. So it's just like, it sucks because I love the series so much. Like my Pokemon Red, the timer stopped working because it's like, you know, 999 hours and like 59 minutes and stuff like that, you know?
Oh my
so
gosh,
like,
that's epic.
That's right. It does stop at that.
You know, so it's crazy. So.
Oh my gosh, dude. That is too badass.
I love it though. Pokemon fan all the way. I love it.
I've been playing Snap lately too, and that's just been nostalgic.
Same here.
Just to like,
I got it because like I pre-ordered it like around Christmas time. Or maybe like right after it was announced. I used Christmas money, like a Christmas gift card to pre-order it and stuff. I played it for like an hour, but then it's just like I'm so freaking busy. But I loved it. The first hour was so much fun.
I think I've only gone to like the wood area. Like I've done the first like 4 levels, dude. It's hard to find time for even portable.
Yeah.
You're just like, I need more time to do this.
And the thing is, like, I have stuff like Hades. Hades is so much fun, like on the go.
Oh, that game is awesome. So
good. And then you're a wrestling fan. So it's like Wrestling Revolution on the Switch. I'm not sure.
Is that the arcade looking one?
Yeah. So basically the creator of that, M. Dickey, that's his name. He's been making wrestling games like for iPhone and stuff for like 15 years. It's so much fun. There's like over like 200 wrestlers in there and you can edit all of their movesets and they're all based on real wrestlers. So you could just go in and like change like, you know, DM Skunk to CM Punk because that's who it really is, you know? And the story mode is incredible. So it's just like, that's a really fun, I play that like every other day. That's a really fun game. So on Switch.
Check it out.
In addition to the stuff that I've done voiceover on because my daughter just gets a kick out of that. So, you know, like the Padre and stuff like that. So
we got to get you on a whole episode just talk about your voiceover work because that's just going to be an exciting,
fun story. Yeah,
we got to
come on again.
We just got to talk about an episode for each thing: video games and freaking voice acting. And
we're gonna make this into like a 6-part segment.
Yeah.
Well, Patrick. Man, it's so hard to say bye to you. We just don't want to. Like, we just we're just like, but wait. We'll definitely have you again soon. Like, this has been awesome as hell, and so much to learn even from our standpoint. And it's great hearing T'Challa. I'm gonna kill you. My cat's just biting my legs right now.
Your cat's name is T'Challa?
Yeah, we actually
that's awesome. I love it.
We found him the day Chadwick Boseman died. Like we were
Oh,
walking
wow.
the dogs, and then we came across him, and then we walked back inside, and then we found out about it. And the next day, I was taking the dogs out, telling a friend, and then we ended up keeping them. And we're like, "It's Jack Kirby's birthday. It's Chadwick Boseman just passed away. Like, it's perfect." Like, so,
Yeah, my cat's named after a comic book character too. But the thing is, it's like whenever I tell anyone my cat's name, they're like, "Wait, what?" So I have a black cat, so it's named Isis.
oh, dude.
So Catwoman's cat.
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, animated series. Yes, yeah.
But whenever I tell somebody my cat's name, they're just like, "You named your cat after like a terrorist organization?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "She's 15. She predates terrorism." Like over there,
You're like,
you know,
like wait, just watch some Batman.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, mine is
So, yeah.
mine's just Navi, named after Ocarina of Time character. So
Oh,
Yeah, no, that's
right.
awesome.
yeah,
Cool.
shared bond of cats. We just got to do a cat podcast now.
Yeah, there you go.
Cats are awesome. Cats are awesome. Cats are like
Cool.
comic book readers, you know, like it's like if a comic book reader gives you like praise, it's like totally legitimate, you know, like the same way, like if a cat loves you, if a cat shows you affection, it's because it's legit. Like I love dogs. My dog is right here, but they're dumb as fuck. And
Dude, once I got a cat, you're just
It's
like, wow.
adorable.
Yep,
Like,
there it is.
yeah,
I've
If a
always
cat
been a
loves
dog
you,
person.
Oh yeah,
if a cat loves you, you've done something right. Dogs,
That,
like they're
Some
so
food.
loyal, it's disgusting. I love them. I love my dog.
it's a different kind of
Okay.
love.
Yes, exactly.
I'm looking at him right now. He's such a dumbass.
You probably
Like I
saw
love him
mine,
to
like,
death. But
running around in the background. But yeah, once
Mhm.
we got our cat a few months ago, we're just like, oh, there's definitely a difference in intelligence, like between the
so
three.
different.
Mhm.
Yep. Mhm.
Well, we can check out your links in the bio below. Of course, this is on YouTube, every podcast platform out there. We'll be promoting it like crazy. Patrick, this is not the last we're going to speak.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your time, and we'll even book the next one to be like an epically long conversation because there's no.
Absolutely.
I feel like we're
And-
cheating us just by like cutting it now.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll say is that like Instagram is like my main form of like social media. I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm on Facebook a lot, but like I love connecting on Instagram. So if anyone's listening and they want to just BS about comics or video games and stuff, just hit me up. I am super approachable. I check my general chat all the time. So, nothing slips through the cracks. So I want to have conversations with people. If you've read Condry and you want to share what you think, positive or negative, by all means, like let's grow together. That's what I'm all about.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
dude. Hell yeah.
And a reminder to everybody, make sure to check out lesserknowncomics.com.
Yes,
And-
absolutely.
You mentioned earlier, everything is free on there digitally at the very least. So
Mhm.
definitely go check it out. It is not that hard. You just go on there. You can immediately download everything they have to offer. So please show some support. And
if you check
too,
us out
while you're
on if you check us out on social media, where a lot of us are doing signings where we're giving away physical comics. So like I've done like 2 or 3 signings already at video game stores, at wrestling shows and stuff like that. A free comic book day, we're going to be doing a ton of stuff. So hit us up, and you can get physical copies. And like I said, the physical copies have a lot more content in them, and they're just really cool. So yeah, we're not just free digital comics, and so we're free physical comics for at least the rest of the year too. So take advantage of that. We're visiting a lot of comic book stores all over the United States, and we're just giving them comics to put in people's pull boxes. So
Hell yeah.
we've got tons of pictures from people like all over the country that are just like, oh, this showed up in my pull box. What's this? And I just message them like, dude, thank you so much for taking the picture, because that's what it's all about. So
Yeah.
So again, lesser known comics. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Condry is on Facebook as well. Facebook.com/Condry Comic. So we update every day. So interact with us, like grow with us. That's what
Hell
we're all
yeah.
about.
Dude, yes. And you guys are so awesome. So glad we got to connect. So glad that, we got to talk and get this whole thing started, and we'll definitely nerd out some more. Brandon, any last words? Any last questions for you guys before we sign off?
Well, I'll save them for next time when we talk.
Well, guys.
It's gonna be another 3-hour episode at that point.
Yeah.
right.
We'll just keep it going.
So everyone's sleeping right now, so it's all good.
Well, Brandon, Patrick, thank you guys so much for hanging.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
man. Thank you so much.